Welcome down to my 9-foot homemade oak bar. Pour yourself a cold one. You are listening to Bucs in the Basement. My name's Chris, and Craig here is the biggest Pirates fan you'll ever meet. Let's talk Pirates baseball now. Welcome to Bucs in the Basement.
Now I see the changes in this town. They change, they say one thing, but then the next day it's different. They change, but they don't know what they want. All they do is change. Going left, going right, travel day, travel night. That's where we'll go. No excuses, no goodbyes, no one cries, no one lies. We'll never know.
All right, guys, I just spent a beautiful day at PNC Park with my youngest, but the outcome wasn't what we wanted. I'm here talking with the man who took the day off, and he took a very good day off, Jason Mackey from the Post Gazette at J Mackey PG. Jason, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good, Craig. I would normally feel really bad about taking off today and then talking like I know everything about the Pirates. Not that I ever know everything, but I'm actually the smartest guy in the room right now that I got away from that debacle. So I feel pretty good about that I did not have to subject myself or my loved ones to whatever that was. It was not a good baseball game.
No, it's definitely one of the wildest ones that I've been to, but I kind of want to take us back to last night first, because that's one of the things that's on everybody's mind was Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller goes 84 pitches. Shelton speaks about it after the game, gives his reasoning behind it. Is that like a manager, and this was in my head, and I could be completely off base, but is that like a manager just kind of, I don't know, protecting his pitcher and taking one for the team? I mean, I'm looking at his pitches so far this season. He's gone over 100 a couple times. The lowest he had been at before that was 89. He was at 84 pitches through 6 innings. What's your feelings on all that, Jason?
I mean, I don't know what he could be protecting Mitch from. Not having the wear and tear later in the season? Did Mitch really want to come out of that game and he didn't want to say so? I don't think either one of those is accurate. I mean, my read on it is that Shelton was in a hurry to manage the game and thought he had an idea of how he was going to deploy his bullpen and this, that, and the other, and I think he was wrong. I think he should have let Mitch continue. I've long been a proponent of allowing guys to face hitters a third time. That does not scare me as much, especially when pitchers are good. My contention in the past was that if a pitcher, especially on the Pirates, seems to have something that night and he's buzzing through the lineup at a pretty good clip, like, I'm not going to stop him. If he's encountering trouble and leaving pitches up and whatever and getting hit around, of course, you're going to take him out. You should manage the game. But Mitch last night was not in that situation in my mind. He gave up 1 run without allowing a ball out of the infield. He walked none. He hit 1 guy. That's not a huge crime. If Mitch Keller would have said he didn't feel right, sure. His health is the most important thing. I think Mitch has been pretty darn honest with the media and would have said something to that effect afterward. And he even said, there was no conversation, that Shelton just said, "You're done." And that was that. And I don't like it. I think Mitch has earned more than that. I think he's pitched better than that. I think that, I understand sheltering guys and keeping them out of sticky situations, but this is just not that. You have to let an ace be an ace. Let a guy, if he shows you that he's good enough, treat him accordingly. I have a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old at home, and if they exhibit older kid behavior, I'm going to give them older kid responsibilities. I don't see why baseball should be any different.
Yeah, it was a weird thing. And like I said, I was just trying to kind of think outside the box a little bit because, like you said, Jason, I mean, he gave up not really hard contact, just two balls that kind of found a place in the infield, just any place that it would have been a hit. I mean, anywhere else, and each one of those are outs. It wasn't like he was getting, killed whatsoever. And he had, like you said, one pitch just kind of get away from him.
And this is what they're going to counter with, Craig, and this is the way the discussion would go. They said, well, he got out of his delivery, and we need his delivery to be clean or whatever. Okay, great. I don't disagree with that. Obviously, you want a pitcher with a clean delivery. At what point does he earn the right to get that back? He got out of the inning with one run allowed. He wasn't comfortable in the stretch. Whatever. He's thrown 84 pitches. Like, that guy hasn't earned the right to go back out there for the seventh inning and show you that he's, found his arm slot. He's found his delivery. We're just saying in perpetuity, he's not going to find it. Your day is done. We're going to go to Robert Stevenson. Give me a break.
And
that's what I mean by Mitch Keller deserves more than that.
Yeah, and especially for a guy who's kind of become a leader, within, the pitching staff. I mean, you're looking at a guy in Johan Oviedo who was struggling and is kind of almost turning to Mitch and saying, well, this is a pitch that's working for him. I want to see how it works for me. And he's helping these guys grow.
And what about this? I mean, they want to sign him to a long-term contract. They want him to agree to pitch here. If you're Mitch Keller, it's a huge overreaction. I want to preface it with that. And I really do believe Mitch Keller is happy here and probably will sign a long-term or, at least a multi-year extension here. But, you're basically telling Mitch Keller, here, sign here. We're going to handle you with kitty gloves. I'd be like, no, sign here. We're going to let you go be a dude. We're not going to take you out of a game after 84 pitches. You're going to be, as long as you pitch like it, which he's certainly done this season, as long as you pitch like an ace, we're going to treat you like an ace. That is something the Pirates can give pitchers that does not cost a dime. And I don't understand why they're just flying in the face of that with the decision that Derek Shelton made last night.
Yeah, like I said, definitely very strange. And another player I feel like they're kind of handling a little bit strange. But it's a guy that, I've looked at the numbers a bunch of times, and I've spoken about him a bunch of times in a Rodolfo Castro, where, they're talking about, limiting him from hitting from the left-hand, side of the plate. They put him into the lab, into the cages, whatever they've been doing to try to get him right. They throw him out there right-handed against a position player, which to me is just kind of weird. And then they come back out today, and he's in the lineup right-handed hitting against a left-hander. And it just seems very, I don't know. It's just pick a lane and kind of go with it. And that's just where my mind is going with Rodolfo Castro.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm with you the whole middle infield situation. Pick a lane and go with it. There's too much back and forth. You can't expect young players to get comfortable in a situation like that. That doesn't mean they need to pick something permanently, but pick something and let it ride for a little bit. And right now it might be Rodolfo Castro at second base, Tucupita Marcano at shortstop, and you just take the best you can get out of those guys. Maybe keep G1 Bay around as a super sub, send Owings down, and make the best out of it. Connor Joe's at bats are probably going to come as a fourth outfielder and a backup first baseman, and I think the water's starting to find its level a little bit there. Jack Sawinski has not necessarily been a world beater. I think you can still sort of rotate him in and out, and that basically takes care of your lineup. But I think they're doing a disservice to some of these young guys by not allowing them enough runway to get comfortable or find some sort of consistency. And Rodolfo Castro, to your point, Craig, he's not a shortstop, and that's okay. He might not be a second baseman, but he's got power. Look at what he's done offensively in his first about 500 plate appearances. I'm pretty sure every Pirates fan would sign up for that. Is he fully developed? Of course not. Does he make boneheaded mistakes from time to time? Yes, he does. Again, I'll take the talent and I'll bet on the kid. Like he's a good kid. I think he's going to get there. And they're doing this with a few guys that are just they're varying degrees of finished or close to finished when it comes to development. I think Castro, more than any of them, needs to play and mature and grow. And this is a great opportunity for him to play a position and play every day. And I'd like to see what the result is if they do that.
Yeah, because I've looked at the numbers. There was only 1 year in the minor leagues I think it was 2021, where his OPS as a left-hander and as a right-handed batter were anywhere close to each other. At left-handed, he was a 720 OPS. Right-handed, he was a 764 OPS. I mean, other than that, in the majors, he's honestly almost like 350 points apart. He's better from the right-hand side, and I feel like that most switch hitters kind of fall into that realm. But like I said, it's just either, okay, he's a right-handed hitter and see how he does against right-handed, or you just kind of put him out there because, it's not like that the power is zero. He has I think it's 324 plate appearances, has a 609 OPS, which is obviously below average as a left-handed hitter, but it's also not like he's hitting, I don't know, a 300 OPS or something ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So there is still that ability. It's just, but also these guys, baseball players come off of, just playing regularly and they get into their routines. And it's like, okay, now, Rodolfo, we're going to work on this, and then we're just going to kind of go back to doing exactly what we were doing before. It just made no sense to me, man.
Same. And I hate the obsession over the matchups. I really do. Baseball is baseball, man. I don't care if you hit left-handed, hit right-handed, throw left-handed. If you're a good baseball player, you're going to play baseball well. That's like looking at Andrew McCutchen and saying, well, you're not a switch hitter, so you're really not that good. Come on. Like, his at-bats have been just fine. We're talking about a guy who had 4 of the best seasons in Major League, top 5 MVP season. He ain't hitting from the left side. He doesn't need to hit from the left side. Give me good right-handed at-bats. I'm fine with that with Rodolfo Castro. Like, are we going to look at O'Neal Cruz and say he doesn't hit right-handed, so he's not that good?
Yeah.
No. He's just a good left-handed hitter. If Rodolfo Castro is a good right-handed hitter, I'd rather have a good right-handed hitter as opposed to somebody who's monkeying around with the switch hitting stuff that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so I figure that he's a professional and he would be able to figure it out. And if you're going to just go and he's going to be a switch hitter, the numbers fall in the middle. A 609 OPS, a 968 OPS, you cut that down the middle, and he is still a Major League Baseball player.
What I think they should be doing right now with Castro, and even Marcano to a degree too, simplify. Just simplify. Stop screwing with them, man. Stop screwing with them. And you could take that for Endy. You could take it for Henry. You could take it a lot with player development stuff. Like, just simplify it, play baseball. Have fun. These kids are so athletic. They are so fun to watch when they get going. I think Tucapito Marcano could actually be a pretty darn good shortstop. He's got the range. He's got the hands. He just needs the reps. Dude, go out there and play. Like, yeah, when O'Neal comes back, he's going to play shortstop. But O'Neal ain't coming back for nearly 3 months. So go enjoy the time. Let's see what you can do. There's a thing with Shelton. And I like Shelton, believe me. I get along with him. I think he does a lot of good things for this team. But I think he does have a tendency to overmanage sometimes. And I think it's like an overuse of the bullpen and is a little too eager to get going in that phase of the game and a little too eager to hunt matchups and put his guys in good situations or whatever. I think sometimes you just need to roll the ball out there and let the kids play. And I would like to see them do that more up the middle.
If you ever see me out and about in Pittsburgh, you will always recognize me, and not just because of the white beard, but also because the why that is always on top of my head, the hat I always wear. The Yins brand, proud partners with Bucs in the Basement. 3 dynasties, 1 brand, Yins. Finally, 1 brand to rep all black and gold. Follow at Shop Yins for new merch drops and giveaways. Order online at www.shopyins, the emphasis on the 2 Z's, high quality comfort, lightweight materials, a new modern look for the black and gold. Made for Yins by a Yinzer. Speaking of let the kids play, I'm going to go the complete opposite direction and go to one of the oldest players on the team. And it's something that's just been like sticking at me is that, I mean, Carlos Santana has played, believe me, defensively, a first base that I really didn't expect like this much from him. Basically diving all over the place, like digging balls out of the dirt, doing all that great stuff. In the month of April, he hits 276, a WRC plus of 117. Over his last 15 games, he's got a slash line of 173, 295, 269. How long do you let that go?
Oh, I'm not in a hurry to do anything there.
Okay.
I'm not. I let it go longer than I can quantify at this point. And in one way, because he's under contract and they're paying anyway. I also don't see anybody at the minor league level that is fully ready to play first base. I think Endy could get over there eventually, but he hasn't taken very many reps, if any, in AAA, and they're dead set on catching him, so it's kind of pointless for me to say anything. Malcolm Nunez, I guess if he continues, he's been pretty good of late. If he continues, maybe he goes over there. But no, I'd ride it out. I think he's been good for this team. He's been really good defensively. It's been nice to watch an actual first baseman play first base as opposed to some of the options they've been trying to shoehorn over there. He hasn't been good offensively lately. I don't disagree with you at all. I thought there was going to be a lot more power there, and there just hasn't been. But, it's still a relatively small sample size. I would just offer to people, like the Brian Reynolds last year stunk at this point. Like, he was awful for the first 2 months and didn't really start feeling it till the end of May in San Diego. And then he got hot all of a sudden. And I'm not saying his season matched previous ones, like the OPS was still in the high 8s, but he did set a career high in home runs. Like, you can get there. There's still time. I guess I would say it's with Santana. Like, I haven't been wowed enough to say, like, oh, I definitely want to have this guy back next year. I'd probably be okay just letting him go. I don't think it's that important, but I wouldn't turn the page just yet on playing time at 23.
Okay, and that's where I want people to understand I wasn't like, okay, like cut ties and cut bait and do whatever, but I just didn't even know if he just needed a couple extra days off because, I mean, I know with Choi getting hurt, some of those reps and the times that he would have been at DH have kind of, wasted away a little bit with, McCutchen pretty much being, straight DH.
Yeah.
I know that he had like a little bit of a tender ankle at one point, different stuff like that. And McCutchen's taking great at bats, so you want him in your lineup. And not to say that Carlos isn't taking good at bats, he's just not having good results. It was just that, I think that they were thinking things would go one way. And I wouldn't say like, a Choi injury is devastating to the team, but it definitely takes away from the plan that they originally had.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they expected to get more power out of Santana than they've gotten so far. I mean, I think that's fair. I think Santana probably expected to give them more power than he has. But I do think there's an interesting question. You kind of touched on it, brewing with Choi. And what do you do there? I don't know his exact timeline at this point. I mean, it's still a couple more weeks, but he's starting to throw and hit again. And he should be back on the field, I'd say within a month or so. And what do you do? I mean, they'd love to get out from under the end of that contract for sure. Maybe love to flip him and get something for him. Do I think they can do either of those things? Probably not. Not at this point. Maybe if he comes back and gets hot, you can move him somewhere. But at this point, I mean, that looks like such a flop of a deal and, just kind of an albatross of a contract. He hasn't added anything. As much as he's funny, you know, being in the clubhouse, like he'll make people laugh. But I mean, that's a hell of an expensive joke. You know, they could have hired a stand-up comic for less than $4 million and change, or whatever the heck he ended up making. Like that's basically what he has added to this team. You know, I like him. I want to see Choi get healthy and be productive. I want to see the Pirates be able to trade him. But, you know, what do you do to get there? You got to play him somewhere. And if you're going to play him at first, you're going to take reps from Santana. If you're going to DH him, you could take reps from McCutchen. What do you do? And I don't know the answer to that question, Craig, but I do think it's something interesting we're going to have to start talking about in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we have maybe even talked about in the offseason a little bit, was just that, you know, you didn't know you were going to get Santana, so you went out and got Choi. You didn't know you were going to get McCutchen, so you ended up, you know, going out and getting, you know, Connor Joe, which at all of those things have all been, you know, except for Choi, who's, you know, barely been on the field, have been all good moves. But it's just kind of like crowded positions that I wouldn't say that didn't need to be crowded, but just it just made for a very, you know, interesting situation.
Yeah, I wrote this in spring training, and I know I caught some heat for it. People said it was a stupid idea, and they could probably look back on it wasn't that stupid, but they could have got out from under the Choi contract. You know, they didn't. There was a clause in there because he went to arbitration, had a hearing, blah blah blah. Like they could have. I forget what the actual terminology is, but basically paid him $1 million and some change to go away. You know, give him like the severance package or whatever, and you don't have to commit to all of the contract. I'm sure they'd like to have that money and not have to deal with him coming back and what you do with him. But I just, it's the redundant bodies, right? And the Connor Joe and McCutchen thing, like I'm fine with that. You have the opportunity to get Kutch. That's the right move 100 times out of 100. Kutch has been very good. Connor Joe's been very good. Frankly, I have zero issue with Connor Joe and what he's done on this team. I like him as a rotational outfielder and a backup first baseman. He's been excellent in both of those roles. He's been a nice addition to the clubhouse, personality-wise, leadership-wise, all of that stuff. You know, I probably would have been fine with just Choi at first. I like Santana better at first. I think he's been a better defender. I just didn't understand, like, keeping the two of them and pretending it's going to be some sort of platoon. Like, you maybe could have traded Choi. At minimum, you could have got out from under the contract again in spring training, but keeping him, I mean, it just looks like a wasted I forget what he makes off the top of my head, but, you know, $4 million and change. And for anybody else, that's nothing. But here in Pirates land, like, I'm sure Bob Nutting is probably not happy that $4 million just vanished like that.
Yeah, and I know that Ethan Houlihan he'll probably comment on this if I'm completely wrong, but I think it was like I think it's called like termination pay or something.
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay, yes. and if I'm wrong, Ethan, I apologize and get back to me on that, because he's actually the guy that I go to for a lot of those types of questions. But for some reason, that's just sticking in my head.
Ethan's not human. I don't know how all of that information fits in one brain, but I appreciate that it does.
Yeah, I definitely do. So, Ethan, if I'm wrong, you know, give me a shout and let me know exactly what that was called. But we're going with another like decision that's going to be on the horizon. It's coming up pretty quick here. Vince Velasquez pitched in Indianapolis this weekend, went about 4 innings. I mean, looks pretty good. I mean, I'm not going to say, you know, based on, you know, one rehab start that he's going to come back and throw, you know, however many scoreless innings in a row, but this is going to, you know, make a decision have to happen here. And, you know, Luis Ortiz has been filling in for him. Unfortunately, Luis has not looked like the Luis of last year, at least to this point. So is that like a fairly easy decision at this point in time? Is, you know, Vince back in the rotation and then Luis back out?
Yeah, I think it is. I do. The only hesitancy in this would have to be something that Velasquez says, you know, how does he feel? Does he feel ready? If he feels like he needs another one, then that's fine. I would completely understand that. I don't think he will. I think he'll probably say he's ready and he wants to go, but that would be the only reason I wouldn't just plop him back down in the rotation. He started Saturday, you know, whenever his turn comes up, as quickly in that range as I can get him in as possible, I do that. I haven't looked at their probable starters for this week. I think Ortiz was slated to go tomorrow or Tuesday. So you can correct me if I missed something there. But, I wouldn't. As soon as Vince is ready, I'd get him in. If he told me he needed one more, fine. But it's been somewhat disappointing with Ortiz, although I certainly understand it. I think, he came up last year. He was at the tail end of a really fantastic year. I've seen enough of this stuff to see, guys sort of finding it a little bit more as it gets warmer, as they get into routine and that sort of. And just Ortiz isn't there. And that's no mark against him. I think he's going to be an incredible pitcher, but he's too inconsistent with his delivery. I don't think he suddenly has something wrong with his arm. At least that's not what I've seen. I see somebody who's tentative and not wanting to let an outing spiral on him. I don't think he knows where the ball is going with any sort of consistency, and he doesn't want it just rattling around the backstop. He wants to try to be able to throw strikes, and so he's taking a little bit off. Last year, he was much more confident in himself and was letting it rip. I send him back down to AAA, let him find that confidence. He pitched fine there, and it's certainly, it's an annual tradition with the Pirates where guys tear up AAA and then can't get those results to translate. But, I send him back down there, have him find himself, and say, we'll see you again in a month or something like that. You'll be back here. You're going to play an important role, but for right now, we need you to keep working at AAA, and I think that's what they'll do.
Something you said earlier, Jason, just kind of like put a thought into my mind, and you were talking about water finding its level, and this is a Pirates team that really wasn't, I wouldn't say wasn't supposed to do anything. That's like a horrible way of saying it, so I'll reword that they weren't supposed to get out to the hot start that they did. They were a team that, some had predicted to start pushing towards 500, to learn how to win, to start to compete. And I know that, you get out to a 20-8 start, then you go, 4-14 at this point in time when we're recording. So you're 24-22. But if somebody came to me and said, the Pirates are 24-22 on May 21st, I think I would take that. But I know how they got there, so I'm not as as willing to take that, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I know exactly, and I I try to figure that out in my head a lot too. I mean, should you feel good about this? Should you not feel good about this? And yeah, if somebody would have told you that blindly, you would have taken it in a heartbeat. Anybody would have. That would have been above expectations, I feel like. But the context of it. And if you've watched this team play, like a lot of their stats, I mean, hitting with runners in scoring position is perfectly emblematic of what we're talking about, right? Like, they're actually good if you look at the entire season. I think going into last night's game or today's game or something, they were around third in MLB, hitting with runners in scoring position. Anybody who's watched this team basically in May would think that they're the worst team in the history of baseball hitting with runners in scoring position. Like, it rarely happens. I think they were 2-11, this month or something like that. I wrote that in a story. But, I mean, that's what I mean, right? Like, the whole thing looks good. But just recently, it looks like crap, and it taints your view of it. And you worry. You think like, oh man, well, they just had a good month, and this is just a really terrible team crashing down to earth. And those are the data points we have at this point, and there are going to be more data points ahead. And I think that, like I said, the water is going to find its level, and I mean, maybe it can go back up too. Like I'm not ruling that out. I think the Pirates are going to, I think they're going to be capable of winning games. I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to be okay. But when it's all said and done, like the expected level of this team, I would say that it's higher than some people maybe thought. I know Vegas, 68 was the over-under, something like that. I think if you revisited it, based on what we've seen so far, you'd probably say they were better than a 68-win team. I think that's fair. But, yeah, it's tough because of how good that April was and how bad the May was. And I'm anxious for the June data point to see and give us a little bit more of a clear picture.
Yeah, because as Chris and I had said on one of the previous shows, that his dad said you don't check your record until Memorial Day. So we got like another week before that happens.
I don't even believe it then. I really don't, because of how funky this season's been. Seriously, like they have like a 3-week penalty or something because of how opposite their 2 months have been.
Yeah, I just kind of see if they can avoid another losing streak, which I mean it's bound to happen at some point in time, but hopefully there's another winning streak that clicks along with that. But as long as it's not like, we get swept, two series in a row and just look absolutely awful and lose the game before that, and we lose that many games in a row. But I know I can't prevent that from happening either. But it's almost like at this point in time, it's like, guys, can we tread water and not throw 5 wild pitches?
Yeah, that's not ideal. And I mean, there are things that the Pirates are doing right now that they should be doing better. And I know that sounds basic, but like, these are self-inflicted wounds. They should be controlling the running game better than they are. That's a problem that's not getting enough attention. That's on pitchers. That's on catchers. They're one of the worst teams in the league. Their success stealing bases lately has stunk. They need to get a lot better in that department, and that's picking opportunities to go, the physicality of the jumps that you get, shutting it down if you don't get a jump, that sort of thing. Again, these are controllable things that they don't cost extra money. They're not outside of the Pirates' reach. The Pirates were very good at them not too long ago, playing cleaner defense. They have not been a good defensive baseball team this season. Sure, Brian Hayes has been good. I can pull some metrics that say Austin Hedges has been good. Carlos Santana has been good. But the infield defense as a whole has left something to be desired. Fundamental plays like the one you're talking about, Craig, Dari Moreta throwing the ball away or whatever. The wild pitches, not good. Can't defend that. But just little gameplay stuff like that that I don't like. And the bullpen has been a little bit wobbly lately, and I would like to see that stuff get cleaned up. And I think if you're not giving away outs, if you're not running into outs, stupid stuff like that, be amazed how far that can go sometimes.
Yeah, a 4-3 game turns into an 8-3 game pretty quickly, and that's what I witnessed today. But Jason, it's been great talking to you, and like you said, maybe like the middle of June, maybe a little bit later than that, we'll check back in with you, and we'll have some more talking points as to what's going on with the Pirates.
All right, brother. Thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.